there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10 list, or some other board game related topic, whatever happens to be on my mind. Well, as I started last week, it was the top, 13, the bottom 13 of the top 24. I didn't do my math very well, but hey, this list is the top 24 games of 2024. I'd meant to divide it evenly, but sometimes things happen. Today we're going to be doing numbers 11 through 10. Or wait, that's not a very long list. 11 through 1, so the top 11 games of the year. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, this has been a fantastic year. I'm sure there are some games I've even forgotten about, but I had a very difficult time narrowing it down just to this list of 24. So we're going to get right in and talk about them. I'm going to try and keep it brief because, of course, I get excited about games that I like. But, with that in mind, let's go to number 11. Number 11 is a game that came out, and I'd actually forgotten about it because it was on Kickstarter, and that's sometimes how Kickstarter works. You forget about it. It is called Andromeda's Edge. Andromeda's Edge is ultimately a re-implementation of a fantastic older game, and by I say older, I mean, 4 or 5 years old, called Dwellings of Eldervale. Terrible title because many people will accidentally confuse it with Dwellings of Everdell. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The game Andromeda's Edge is a space-themed version of Dwellings of Eldervale. And it is, it's 95% the same, much like Wingspan was 95% the same as Wormspan, or scratch that, reverse it. I'm obviously confused. I've got Cthulhu on the brain. So this is a really interesting game where it takes all of the same mechanisms, which is mostly it's a place and recall worker placement game. You're either going to take a placement turn where you'll activate usually a fairly quick action and sometimes trigger some combat, or you'll take a recall turn and pull all of your ships back and then activate all the things that you've built. Really a fascinating game. There's a lot going on besides that, but it's just a great implementation of a type of game that really kind of goes all the way back to Manhattan Project, but this is a fantastic way to play it. The game is pretty big. It takes a lot of table space and takes a lot of time to set up, but once you get it up, it's worth it. That is my number 11, Andromeda's Edge. And with Andromeda's Edge behind us, we can get into the number banner things, whatever they're called. So let's go on to my number 10. All right, my number 10 is one of two. There's a game designer who had just a fantastic year. And he had 3 games come out. Only 2 of them have made it to my table. I haven't been able to find the third one yet. The first game, it was Thomas Holek, I think was his name. I should be able to tell. I've got the page open here. Thomas Holek, Czech designer. And the first of his games that we'll talk about, my number 10, is Galileo Galilei. Now, when this came out, I was a little bit... I thought the cover looked a little bit boring. It's just a game named after a famous old guy that usually doesn't bode well. But I gave it a try, and I'm sure glad I did. The sort of main mechanism here is a kind of a weird rondel where you're going to be moving this telescope up and selecting your action, and you're going to do the top action and the bottom action, and then the bottom actions are all going to rotate. This board looks kind of backwards. Anyway, one of the actions, on mine it's the top action is fixed and the bottom action will rotate out. Looks like this one's backwards, but maybe it's a prototype. And so the bottom action is going to be changing constantly. Ultimately, your goal is to collect die values, and the dice are going to be used. You're going to mix them, red and blue make purple, so you can put a red and a blue die together to sort of buy these cards out here, which is observing heavenly bodies. And there's a bunch of tracks you can move up on and get points for that way. It's just a really interesting game. It does not feel like his other game that I played this year, or like a whole lot else that's out there. It's a really interesting game, well implemented, not a throwaway theme at all. That is my number 10, Galileo Galilei. Let's go on to my number 9. My number 9 was a surprise game for me. This one kind of came out of nowhere. I saw it reviewed online, and it got relatively good praise, and I bought a copy, and when Victor was here, and we just played a lot of this. I mean, because it's short, it's fast, it's one of those just one more type of games. This game is Bomb Busters. Bomb Busters, I think I did a Whimsy about it, but ultimately this is a game about, it's a deduction game, cooperative deduction. You're going to have a series of these wires in front of you. You can see them, no one else can. You will have arranged them from low to high, and there will be some information that's available. Periodically, well, on your turn, you're going to pick somebody and name a number, and it has to be a number you have as well. And if it matches, then you're going to cut it and one of your own as well that match, and you're ultimately trying to cut all of the wires, save for the red instant death wires. The game then takes it from there and iterates on itself. There are 66 missions. Most of them are just variations on the same theme with different, maybe you have to cut certain wires before other ones, or you have different kinds of equipment, or whatever it may be. They're just small iterations, but the game itself, the core game, is really a very fascinating game. It works well with all numbers of players, other than 3. 3 is kind of weird, because then somebody has twice as many wires. But 2 and 4 is really good. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's fast, it's fun. It gives you that nice sort of, those moments in deduction games where you feel really smart. It's full of them, and you can give really good clues, and there's just great things you can do in this game. I was really pleasantly surprised by my number 9, Bomb Busters. Let's go to number 8. All right, my number 8 is a game that it was not a surprise. It's a little surprising for me that it's as low on the list as it is based on how excited I was for it. But this game was the game I was most anticipating for a long time. It was a Kickstarter that went everywhere except to my table, it seemed like. But this is my number 8, Freedom 5. I guess it would have been nice if it had been 5. But this is the cooperative superhero game in the Sentinels of the Multiverse universe. You are going to take on the heroic characters from Sentinels of the Multiverse, and you're going to be fighting the villains. Each character has their own sort of secret identity and public identity, heroic identity, and you're going to be going around doing all kinds of actions and thwarting the villains' themes. This is very much like Pandemic, or it is a re-implementation of Defenders of the Realm, so it's that kind of a cooperative game. But it's just got all this theme and character in it, and it's got stories you'll play through. There's a campaign that you can play through in order if you want, or you can just open everything up and then pick whatever scenario you want to play. I have the painted figures. Fortunately, they don't look like that. Those look pretty terrible. Mine look more like this. And it's very thematic. It's a lot of fun. It's a little on the long side, but it's a great way to sort of experience the Sentinels of the Multiverse world if you don't want to play Sentinels of the Multiverse. And there are reasons you might not want to, because it's complicated and requires an extra brain in a jar to do the math on it for you. But this one is very friendly, easy to get into, and a whole lot of fun. My number 8, Freedom 5. Let's go to number 7. All right, my number 7 is another one that was one of those Kickstarters that went awry. And this is a weird one for me. The game is called, I'm hoping I can find it, here we go. Yeah, the game is Unconscious Mind. Unconscious Mind is a game about sort of the early days of Freudian psychoanalysis. It has fantastically whimsical artwork, as you can see here from the cover. I think it was the Dice Tower #1 cover of the year, but that's neither here nor there. Ultimately, what you're doing is it's another one of those sort of place and reclaim games. You are some sort of early fan of Freud, and you are building up this action pool, I guess. There's a part where you're moving around on the city of Vienna, but ultimately what you're doing is there's a board and you have these ideas, which are these little thought bubbles. They're actually speech bubbles. I wish they looked more like thought bubbles. And you're going to place them out and then do the actions that are next to them, or you're going to recall. And all of this is in service of getting the most points. And a major way that you can get points is by treating your patients. Each patient's going to have dreams, and by analyzing their dreams, ultimately you're developing these kind of weird resources that are various insights on people's psyche, I guess. And then you're going to be able to analyze the dreams and help bring them peace. And eventually, if you cure them, then they'll give you a bunch of points, and you can get special abilities and things like that. The artwork is very whimsical on one hand. It's an artist who does a lot of whimsical designs, and then kind of this watercolor, very realistic artwork from another artist, and it's just a very interesting game. It is very long. It is there's a lot going on, and there's a lot you can mess up. And it's one of those games where one person's turn could be really, really long, and someone else's might be very short. So be aware of that. It's one that I generally think is best going to be at 2 players just because of the length, but it's really fascinating and a lot of fun. It has a pretty good solo mode as well. So that is my number 7, Unconscious Mind. Let's go on to number 6. Number 6 is a game. I'm not surprised that I liked it because I love the theme, but I was surprised that it came out because it was unexpected. This is a theme that I've enjoyed for a while from a television show and then a comic book. And this game is Invincible, specifically the one from Direwolf, the Invincible hero building game. This game has almost a Quacks of Quedlinburg type of a mechanism. It's a cooperative game, but what you're going to be doing is there's not really turns, but you're going to be pulling cubes from a bag, and you can use everything, but there are some black cubes, and when you get to a number of the black cubes, then you bust, and you are in trouble, and you have to roll a horrible things die. Your goal is going to be playing through one of the episodes of the first season of Invincible, and you're going to be trying to defeat some sort of a major threat and win the game. You have one of the 4 main characters, sort of main characters from Invincible, and then you've got all the big bads. It's fairly straightforward, but it's cooperative. It's a lot of fun. It's fast, and you really have to work together. You can play it on hard, which I do when I play it solo. When I play it with other people, I don't. But there's just a whole lot to explore and enjoy here, and a lot of room for expansions because there's a huge comic series, and a couple more heroes and more characters would be fun. It's just a really interesting game of pulling cubes from a bag and making that feel heroic, and there's a whole lot of ability to upgrade and get better powers, and it's a game that lets you do all the fun things, and not a whole lot of upkeep, and that's that works in my book. That's my number 6, a surprise, Invincible. Let's go on to my number 5. All right, my number 5 is one I slept on for a good portion of the year. It's a more recent addition to the list, but oh boy, have I been playing a lot of it. This one is just such a fascinating game that I looked at when it came out and thought, hey, not interested. But I definitely needed to repent of that because my number 5, Harmonies, is just such a fascinating, puzzly game that's fast and really fun. So the artwork on it looks pretty great, right? Oh, I guess I'm not showing you. Here we go. The artwork on it looks pretty great. But it has very little to do with the game. The sort of core game is a bunch of discs that you're stacking. And so on your turn, kind of Azul style, you're going to take a set of discs from a pool. There's sort of groups of these discs, and then you're going to place them into your tableau here. And there's a couple of rules. Pretty much everything can go on the ground, but other things can be on top of each other. And each of these different landscapes is going to score differently, but kind of the fun of the game is that you're going to have these cards, and you're going to be able to select them and get new ones every turn. And if you're able to make the pattern that's on the card, you get to take one of the cubes off and put it on one of the tokens on that, which just shows you can't use it again for something or put anything else on top of it. But you're trying to sort of make combos out of these different landscape orientations that work together. And I'm not selling it very well in my description, but it's really a fascinating game. It's just a lot of fun. It's fast. It's honestly, this might be the Azul killer for me, just because it has a lot of the same feeling about it, and then it has Cascadia type scoring on the different types of landscapes, but it's faster, I think, than both of those games. And it was just really a super surprise hit for me. One that kind of came out of nowhere that I slept on until, this month, and then it shot up to my number 5 because I played it so much and because it's just so fun. That is my number 5, Harmonies. I don't know what it has to do with harmonies because it is about animals, I guess. But who cares? Let's go on to my number 4. All right, my number 4, 3, 2, and 1 probably won't be a surprise to anybody who's played games with me this year. The order might, be the thing that people are interested in, but these are games that I have been talking about since, as soon as they came out. Now, the first one is technically listed on Board Game Geek as a 2023, but it did not come out in the U.S. in 2023. I first played it in, I think, February, and it was an instant 10 for me. I mean, this game is just so interesting. That is Anunnaki. Anunnaki is from probably my favorite board game designer, Simone Luciani. It's either him or Vladimir Sushi, depending on the day. And in the game, you are some sort of alien race that people think are gods, these sort of ancient mythological gods. And that's kind of the theme. And the theme is ultimately barely there. What you're really doing is moving around and selecting actions on this very interesting action selection board. At the beginning of the game, you are going to fill all these spots. You're not going to fill these spots, but these little indentations are going to be empty. And as you move across them, so if I move from this red to this green, I get to take a cube from my cube supply and put it in and gain whatever bonus is there. Okay, great. But once I have surrounded one of these sort of triangular nodes here, then I get to summon one of my small gods, which is a stronger unit and gives me access to some either immediate, ongoing, or endgame scoring benefit, and that's something that I had picked at the beginning of the game. When I completely surround this center pentagon, then I get to summon my major god, who is going to give me a bunch of bonuses and unlock another special ability that's usually pretty game-changing. And so on your turn, you're going to select an action, and the best part is you can select any action you like. You do not have to follow the limit there, these lines. The only limit is you can't do the same action one turn after another, but that's, or you can't do the same action again and again each one turn after another. So you have to pick a different one. So you're free to do whatever you want, whatever works for you. But if you follow the rules, if you follow the lines, you're going to be rewarded as well. So there's a nice balance there. Ultimately, there's some tracks you're trying to shoot up on. Or if somebody spends all their cubes, then the game kind of ends like that. The game is a big game. It looks like a big game, but it's much shorter and much smaller than it looks. This one gives me the same sort of feeling as Scythe does, but I might even like it better. This game is really just such a fascinating, interesting, amazing game. I loved it from the first play, and I still do today. And it's one that every time I introduce it to people, I mean, I think I must have sold 10 copies of this to different people that I've played with throughout the year, because it's a game that's just so fascinating and fun. That is my number 4, which, look, if we had done this list in February, would have been my number 1. So let's see what beat it out with my number 3. My number 3, also a relatively recent addition because it came out at Essen, and I guess there were some component issues, so it took a little while to make it over here. But once it came, it sure did hit my table. This is Stefan Feld's best game. The game is called Civolution. No theme. The name, I guess, is a combo between civilization and evolution, but that's neither here nor there. And your player board looks like the periodic table, but regardless of that, it's a lot of fun. Ultimately, it's sort of an advanced Castles of Burgundy. You're going to have dice, and each turn you're going to you're going to pick 2 dice and do an action that they allow you to perform. Lots of ways to manipulate if you'd rather. Your main goals are going to be getting points, and one of the ways to do that is by filling in these rows, and you can do that by playing cards or getting other bonuses that go in here. You're also trying to, there's going to be various scoring things that are going to be activated in the game, and so, you want to be highest on certain tracks. There'll be events that are happening, and there's a world to explore as well. There's a lot to focus on. You do not have time to do everything. It's only 4 rounds. And it scales pretty well with the number of players. It is long at 4, but it's because, everyone's having kind of more rounds. But at 2 or even solo, it just sings. This game is fantastic. It is so much fun. No theme here, but there never is in a Stefan Feld game. But the gameplay and sort of the way everything works together is just so delightful. I really love Civolution. It was almost my number 1. It beat Anunnaki, which I did not think was possible at the beginning of the year. It's just great. I love Civolution. But let's see what I love more. My number 2 game. Now, my 1 and 2 flip-flopped. There's some things I love about my number 1 game that put it slightly above number 2, but I think I'll have an easier time playing my number 2 with people. My number 2 is SETI. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, from Thomas Holek. That's the one we talked about earlier with Galileo Galilei. This game is just so fascinating. And honestly, it'll be in my top 100, especially if they come out with some more alien races. It looks huge and complicated. I should be showing this here, shouldn't I? It looks huge and complicated, but really it isn't. On your turn, you're going to be playing a card mostly, or doing one of a few kind of separate actions that you can do. These are various kind of side actions. Initially, my copy didn't come with player aids, but I got them shipped to me later. It has a fantastic, and that was when I did my Wednesday Whimsy on it, I mentioned that it could have used a better player aid. Actually, it has a fantastic player aid. But what you're trying to do is move about this galaxy and find traces of alien life, and at various points during the game, you're going to do so, and you'll flip over one of these alien things, and there'll be an alien on the other side, and it changes slightly the rules of the game. It gives you something else to focus on. It's not a particularly long game. It's 5 rounds, and your turns are usually pretty lightning fast. There's a lot of things to try, a lot of ways to get points. You've got this weird galaxy-looking thing that looks really complicated, but it's just this rotating board that will slowly move throughout the game. It's not like it's rocketing around the galaxy. It's just slowly it's going to move. So if you're able to time it, you might be able to get some free movements out of that kind of thing. A lot to love here. Great production. Hundreds of interesting, different cards that are all really fun. This game is just such an interesting, enjoyable game, and it's definitely the best Euro game of the year. So my number 1 now is what we're going to go to next. And my number one won't be a surprise to anyone who knows me because I talk about it all the time. Um, this this was, I mean, as soon as it came out, it was pretty much destined to be my number one because it's just the kind of game that I adore. This game is Primal the Awakening. Primal the Awakening is a huge, complicated boss battler game where, you've got these gigantic monsters. Am I showing it? Yes, I am. You've got gigantic monsters, and this is bigger than that child. Mine are actually nicely painted. This is not mine, but it could be because mine look great. But ultimately, you've got this board, and you've got a mini there that's a monster, and you've got 4 heroes, and they are ultimately trying to attack and destroy this monster in the middle. Each of the monsters is different, plays differently, has different things that it's going to do to interact with you, and each of the heroes is different. There are 6. And they are very customizable. You can play through a campaign and upgrade as you go, or you can just pick any monster and play it at any difficulty level and have a fantastic time. If you want it to be really, really rockety hard, it can be, but you're also going to be scaled up so that you have a lot of power too. There is a lot to keep track of. I mean, it's Sentinels of the Multiverse level maintenance and monitoring that you've got to do here, so be careful. It's also huge, takes up a lot of space, takes a lot of time to set up, is expensive, but it's so much fun. I just love Primal the Awakening. This game I can see in my top 10 of all time, probably, which I'll do next year. I guess we'll see. But I mean, there was really never a time after I discovered this game where I guess it was unlikely to be my number one. It's a game, it's a 10 out of 10 for me, and it might even have gone up since I did my episode on it. It's just, you fight this monster, and you have the tools to do it, and it's just, there's so much variety and fun here. I played through the campaign. The campaign was okay. Campaign was underwhelming. But the sort of pick it up and play any scenario mode, that's where it's at. This thing is great. I love to teach it. It's one that you'd probably want to be taught because there is a lot going on. It's got a 100-page rule book or something like that. But I've taught it a lot. I've played with a lot of people this year. I've also played it alone. And I cannot stop talking about Primal the Awakening. But I have to because I don't want this episode to become 2.5 hours long. And I already did an episode about Primal the Awakening, so I don't need to do another one. But that is my top 24 of 2024. I don't know if anything on there surprises you. Probably not if you play games with me, because the games that I like are the games I keep bringing out. I hope you enjoyed kind of my run-through of that. I had a good time doing it. I always like doing this. I might, revisit it at some point in 2025 to see if I'm still playing these games. Maybe I won't do all 24. But regardless, that's kind of it. That's it for 2024. Now, next week I am going to be back for a final episode. I think it might be on Christmas Day. Ho, 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 I guess. Where I'm going to talk about Quarterly Countdown, everybody's favorite show within a show. It's just going to be a short where I'll talk about the top games of this quarter. It's not necessarily the top 24 of the year, but the games that were new to me this quarter. And then that's it for the year. And it's been another great year at Wednesday Whimsy. I've had a lot of fun doing these. I hope you have fun watching them. And until then, I'm going to wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I'll see you hopefully next time for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.